Millennials are taking out a lot of student loans to finish off their degrees, but it may not be in their best interest to do so. Which loans should you take out, and how should you start repaying these loans while you're in college? That's what we're talking about on today's Angel Dodger.
I spent my life pushing myself to be the strongest, and now I learn there's a power level I'll never reach on my own. And I hate that.
In today's episode, I'm joined by Kristin Wong, who is a blogger on financial. You give financial advice in your blog. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thanks for inviting me.
Since we're talking about student debt in this episode, my first question would be, in your opinion, what are some common financial mistakes that you've seen people make when they attend college or while they're attending college?
Well, I think nowadays it's, one big mistake is people don't necessarily consider the return on investment because they didn't have to do that in the past. Like when I was going to school, which was, 10 years or so ago, you didn't really consider the return you might get on your degree because you just figured, back in the day, it was like, if you get a degree, that's good enough. And that's that's going to get you somewhere. But nowadays, like job placement rates just aren't what they used to be. The job market is changing. And so I think, we kind of have to shift the way we think about a degree and think about the numbers involved. Like, what does it cost for that degree and how much you're going to get back? How soon are you going to be able to pay back your student loan if you take one out?
And that's why you think people make these mistakes is that, it's just a matter of you get a degree, you're going to get a good paying job. It's that you have to get rid of that mindset.
Right. And I think it just kind of takes looking at the numbers and looking at it from an investment perspective. Like I said, when I was going to college, I didn't really think of it as a literal investment. I thought about it as an investment on my education and, my higher ability, but I didn't think about the numbers. I did to a certain extent because I was broke and I could only afford to go to a certain type of school, whatever. But I think nowadays, you have to consider what does the school cost compared to other schools? Is community college maybe cheaper? Just what are your financial options, I guess? Can you negotiate with the college? Because a lot of colleges, especially like the private schools, I guess the more prestigious you would call them schools, they will negotiate package rates for certain students, especially if you have a competing offer from another school.
Mm-hmm.
So just those things are things to consider, I think, nowadays.
What are the different types of loans that are available to college students, and what should students, particularly in undergrad, know about these types of loans?
You can get, federal or a private loan. I got a private loan, but I think a federal loan is probably the way to go just because federal loans come with a lot of protection. Like once you graduate, if you can't afford to pay them back, you can get like income-based repayment or pay as you earn. They have certain federal programs that are built in that kind of protect you in case it's not what you thought. You're not going to be able to pay them back afterwards. And I think the interest rates are usually better too.
Going back to the actual loans themselves for you, were there any mistakes in particular that you made that you would advise current students not to make?
Like I said, it was a different time when I was going to school. One thing I do wish that I would have done differently, but not too much because my school wasn't as expensive, nowhere near what people are paying nowadays, I guess, or taking out loan-wise. But I do wish that I would have gone to community college and saved some money, like gone for a couple of years to community college and then transferred over to a school because you get the same degree if you do that, and it's just more lucrative. And I think actually community college is probably an underutilized option for a lot of students. I think the stigma is wearing off a bit, but I think a lot of parents and probably a lot of students also have a certain stigma about community college, like it's not real college or whatever. And I think that stigma is kind of fading, but you could actually save quite a bit of money if you do that. So, I guess that's one thing that I probably would have done differently. If I were a student nowadays, I'd probably really consider the school that I was going to because a lot of schools now are, they're great schools, but there's less of an emphasis, it seems, on education and more of an emphasis on like prestige or facilities, what being the best party school. There's a documentary called Ivory Tower that does an awesome job of breaking this all down. And they say it's like a corporate arms race for colleges because they're all competing with each other to see who can like fund the best research studies or who can fund, have the biggest pool. and gym. And so I would really just take a look at the school and see what they value, and see what the job placement rates are like at that school. I think those are important.
Personally speaking, just to add to your point, I think that when it comes to college, it's becoming more about like not the education itself, but the connections that you make while you're there. So I would add that if you can factor in like that more expensive, more prestigious private university can get you better connections in the field that you're in, then maybe it's worth the return on investment. Although that's not necessarily something that you can quantify. But the education itself, I don't think that it's better necessarily at a private university than a public university. It is more the connections. But
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, and at a lot of those prestigious schools, you will make connections like that. So I think that's definitely something to consider. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some ways to save money and start paying off your loans while attending school that people don't really know about?
One way, one super easy trick, it's not going to save you a ton of money, but it will save you some, is to set up a direct deposit on your with your student loan payment, like direct deposit from your direct debit, I should say, from your bank account. So it's just basically an automatic bill payment, and you should be able to save. Most loan servicers will give you like a 0.25% discount on your interest rate, which is like nothing, but it adds up if you're having a hard time paying your loans. That's a decent option. The other thing is, like I mentioned, if you really just there's no way in hell you can pay your student loans back, I think those relief options are good to look into. The federal, the income-based repayment and stuff like that. But even if you have a private loan, you can look into deferment or forbearance, which is basically postponing the loan until you're able to pay it back. Usually if you have a financial hardship, they'll postpone your payment so you don't rack up any late fees. And with deferment, you don't rack up any interest during that time. So, if you're really struggling, I think those are some options until like your income increases. And other than that, I think just learning personal finance 101, which is like a very blanket statement, but I think it's important.
My final question would be, if a person watching this video is someone who will be starting college in the fall, what is the one piece of financial advice that you would give them?
They've already picked their school and everything like that. I would say one, money hack, if you will, would be to think about your student loan payments like while you're going to school. And I mean, being a freshman going 4 years into it is by the time you graduate, that's a big difference. But if you can just at least get into the mindset, if you can budget that payment, so to speak, into your budget, like if you know what your student loan payment's going to be, whether it's $100, something like that, add that into your budget, and then you get used to making that payment. And, granted, you're probably not going to, when you're a freshman, you're going to be struggling. But if you can at least be aware that that payment's going to be there, what you prepared for that, what the budget's going to look like when you graduate. And that might be a better, better advice for like senior year students or something like that. But, if you're a freshman and you're starting off, I would say take advantage of your student discount whenever you can.
Thanks for watching. If you want to get more financial tips from Kristin, you can check out her blog website, thewildwong.com. If you like this episode, you can check out my most recent episode over here, which is the second part of a mini-series that I did on addiction. This particular video focuses on crystal meth addiction. If you want to get more videos on student debt, you can check out the second part of this mini-series, which is right here. And it discusses what it takes to pay off your student loans once you graduate. Also, if you like this video or any of the videos in my blog, you can go ahead and subscribe with this big red button that should be right here. All you got to do is press it, and it'll keep you updated on any future videos that I make. Big red button.